I'm Emily.
And I'm Hannah.
We are best friends and dietitians. We have a goal of challenging nutrition misinformation and fitness trends with an evidence-based approach.
Each episode, we will dish up our thoughts about the latest facts on a popular health-related topic.
We're the Up-Beet Dietitians. Alrighty, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Up-Beet Dietitians podcast. Today, we are joined by Jessi Holden. Jessi has been a dietitian since 2013 and has a passion for helping people trust their intuition in the kitchen to make cooking simple and fun. She finds that the diet-focused culture has taken the joy out of cooking, which is what she helps people restore.
Jessi shares bite-sized tips, recipes, cooking classes, and more, both on her social channels, blog, and private kitchen VIP community. Jessi is married to her husband, Steve, and is a mom to 1 2-year-old Lincoln with a second little nugget on the way. Ah, so cute. Hope you guys enjoy this episode with Jessi. It's a really good one. Enjoy.
Woo!
I never know how to end that part. Okay. Enjoy, guys.
Hi, Jessi. Welcome to the podcast. We're so excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I love your podcast, so happy to be here.
We are so excited to have you because we've had some cooking expertise on here, but we're so excited to bring in kind of that intuitive eating piece because we always find a way to bring it in, but we love that it's the main focus for today. And we cannot wait to kind of talk to you about cooking without like diet restrictions and intuitive eating and all that fun stuff. But we always like to first start off with kind of giving a little introduction to, besides the one we already gave, into kind of what day in the life looks like for you. What do you do for work? What's your past education? What are fun things you like to do? All that fun stuff. So the floor is yours.
All right. Well, so I was born, no, I'm just kidding. So basically I started my own business almost a year ago. I've been toying with the idea and kind of like playing around with it for a long time, but I went all in kind of, April, oh goodness, probably April of 2021. I went like half in and then of April of this year, I left my other job, which was, I was an outpatient dietitian at a hospital, and I really did love that job, but I'm applying a lot of those things to what I do. So now basically I work with one-on-one with clients. I do group classes. I teach cooking courses. I do a lot of cooking demos for different companies. That's one of my favorite things to do because I have always loved teaching with my hands. You might see during the video of this, I'm a little handsy, and I just like teaching with my hands. And I think the kitchen is such a great space to learn in. So most of my job is in the kitchen. I'm either creating videos, recording podcasts, or creating content, or working with a client and showing them like how to cut an onion or how to cook this or how to do that. So I just find that those skills, I don't know, they're applicable to everybody, and you can tweak them, you can change them. But it wasn't until probably like 4-ish years ago, I even learned about intuitive eating, and I've been a dietitian for 9 years. And so I think a lot of people have followed that path where like maybe they were more weight centric and then they had their eyes open to a lot of amazing things and research. And so when I started discovering it, I was like, it blew me away, to be honest. I think it was a lot of philosophies I've like had in my heart, but to see it written out and to see how you can actually help somebody in this kind of way was really, I don't know, it's just like it made me feel like an ignition for teaching cooking in a way that doesn't have to be like, gotta be low cal, gotta be low fat, gotta be la 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 la. Someone wants to do that, I fully support them, go for it, but it doesn't have to be that way in order to be healthy. Even that word is like, kind of bugs me in the food world. But so yeah, sorry, I know I rambled a bit, but hobbies and fun things I have. I'm married. I have a 2-year-old. He is a lot. He's so great, and he's so like talkative now, which is so much fun to like have these mini conversations with him. So that's been great. And we have another baby on the way in December of this year. So we're feeling excited over here. And I live in Michigan and I'm not on the lake Michigan, but I'm near it. So we love going to the beach. We love being outside and love playing board games and watching Netflix at night.
Oh, so awesome. Yeah, I wanted to say congrats on baby to come. That is so
you.
exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're very excited. I'm actually like, as we're recording this, like this is day 2 of me not having any nausea. So like everyone knock on wood for me. Like
Amazing.
I'm finally
Yeah.
keeping food down again, which is like, unless you have lived that, holy moly, it's intense.
Yeah. Well, that's really good to hear.
Mhm.
Yeah, we are just so pumped because cooking and intuitive eating can and should go hand in hand. And you hit the nail on the head saying that like oftentimes us dietitians maybe don't like learn intuitive eating. Emily and I are currently talking about that all the time, how we were taught like weight loss. You should only be eating low calorie meals, whatever. So it's just such a cool niche that you have discovered and like bloomed in because it's so needed. And
Yeah.
not many people, well, I shouldn't generalize, but some people probably don't learn a lot about cooking like at home. They just don't really know how. And so it's so important to like learn how to do that, but also do it in a way that's not diety. So that's so awesome.
Yeah, I feel like, people have asked like, well, what's your niche? Like, how can you narrow it down? And I'm like, like I either have people I work with who are like way into intuitive eating and like they want that and they want the support in the kitchen with that emphasis, which is wonderful. And I also have people who are like, I cannot cook. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to make meals. And their language is like, I want to make healthy meals for my family. And there's so many like ideas out there of how that is supposed to happen. So it's an honor to like teach them how to cook, but I get to do it in a non-diet way, which is like just super sweet. I don't know. I love it.
Yes. Gentle nutrition.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes. Yes. Well, I feel like we already talked about the first point we were going to like go over was can intuitive eating and cooking coexist? Was the answer is yes. Let's talk about more though, a little bit more, I feel like the advanced side, or like it's viewed as advanced, doesn't have to be that crazy, but the meal planning and meal prepping side of it, can that be incorporated with intuitive eating? Can that kind of coexist with intuitive eating?
Totally. And like, I love doing, one-on-ones and group education for this reason, because I feel like everyone who I've ever worked with on this is always in very different places with their journey, whether they have even gone through the journal or they worked with a certified intuitive eating counselor or another therapist or somebody, and they've gotten this footing, or I've had people who have like, no experience in intuitive eating. So when it comes to meal planning, first I like to just kind of ask them, what is meal planning to you? Like, because I think a lot of us have this idea, and maybe this is a diet mentality, but like the first thing that always used to come to mind for me for meal planning was like a bazillion containers. And like that works for some people, and that's so cool. To me, that's like the most like stress inducing. Like I can't even, I don't even want to think about it. So I like to see like, what does meal planning already look for an individual or a group of people? What do you want from meal planning? And then what are some red flags of dieting? That's something I like to go over. Like, how might those things pop up when you're meal planning? Because I think when you're learning the principles and hopefully you're getting support from somebody certified or licensed or something, like working on that together, I think it's important that like we just know that the thoughts of old dieting thoughts or the shoulds, like, oh, I should really do this or I should really do that, like they're going to pop up. Like I don't fib to people and say like, oh, you're gonna be cured, everything's gonna be great. Like that's not my approach. So I think with meal planning and even prepping, like you figure out what they do now, where can they go from here, what do they want from here, and how can they just be aware of where those thoughts might pop in, and what strategies do we have to combat those thoughts? Because really a lot of this is due to our thoughts.
Yeah, I love that. I am definitely the same. When I think of like, well, prior to becoming an intuitive eating dietitian, meal planning and prepping was like, you've got your grocery list, it's all perfect. You've got Tupperware out the wazoo, all day Sunday is gone because you're just spending the whole day chopping and cooking. And so I always say it's like a spectrum. Like if that's the piece that makes you feel good, you're prepared for the week, that's really awesome.
Yep.
hopefully it's not in a diety way, but if it is, hey, if it works for you, that's great.
Yep.
But it can be as simple as like prepping ingredients, like cutting up the peppers that you're going to have to cook on Wednesday, maybe getting like your salmon in a marinade so you can just throw it in the oven the next day. So
Exactly.
it's definitely a spectrum, and wherever it kind of lands for you is best case scenario.
Yep. And I like to tell people, like, I think that's something I love working on the most within the kitchen is building confidence, whether it is in meal planning, cooking skills, intuitive eating skills, mindset, any of it, because yeah, you're going to be on the spectrum, but you have to find what works for you, and you have to feel confident, and like you have to feel good about it, because if you don't, something's probably off, and then we just have a little more work to do.
Totally.
That's
Mhm.
yeah. I think also there's so many common themes between. We're gonna link the other cooking episode. You would love it. It was a lot about like building confidence in the kitchen, both like simple meals. So this is like a perfect like they're gonna go so well hand in hand. So it'll be great. So we kind of talked about how like you can incorporate intuitive eating with like cooking, meal planning, and prepping. If someone's not even in the wheelhouse of thinking about intuitive eating, they're like still very much in that diet culture world, have that dieting mindset, how might that make cooking more difficult?
Yeah.
A very open question.
Yeah, no, but I'm ready.
Yeah.
I think some of the big things that stand out to me and people I've worked with in the past are, one, that like dieting typically takes you sometimes away from your family and away from your family meals. And not everybody has a family, and maybe some people are on their own, but it actually can still influence them like when you're with friends and family. So that's a little bit of a sidetrack. But let's say you're cooking for your family and you are making a spaghetti dinner, like the most basic meal I could just pop up in my head. But you say like, I can't have this, or like, I shouldn't eat this pasta. Like I need to drink this shake instead. Or I've even seen people who they look really they look really down in some of the posts I've seen where they're like drinking my shake and everybody's eating like their meal around them, and it was they had like rice and tortillas and beans in this meal, and I was just like, man, if I could just tell you there's nothing wrong with any of those foods. That's a big way. I think it can really take away your food experience and the social and cultural aspects of food. So that's like a big way it can make cooking or planning a lot more difficult. I think a lot of people who are in a diet or in that mentality, a lot of them are still measuring everything, or like, and I mean like measuring their portions. Like I'm not against measuring spices. I get that. That's a good skill to work on, and then you can wean away from it if you want to. But like portioning out their foods, weighing all their food, counting all their food, like feeling like, oh crap, like I'm out of calories. Like, what am I supposed to do? Or, oh, I need to make up for this. If I eat this tonight, I need to make up for this later. So I don't want to plan on a pasta meal, even though that's like budget friendly for my family, because I can't have like, it just, to me, even doing that in my mind, I'm like, I'm overwhelmed. And I think that's why a lot of those initial like 30-day pushes, try this for 3 months, like that's why people burn a lot on those type of things too, because it's so much all at once. And like, I just see that making cooking so overwhelming, where if you feel like you can cook in a nourishing, in a satisfying, in a delicious way and provide for yourself and family, like that's freedom to me. If you feel like you can do those things without having to agonize over like the calories, the points, the this, the that, like it's gonna make cooking a much more enjoyable experience, and then hopefully prevent things like binging and negative self-talk and things like that, which often happen when people are on diets. So yeah, it can really make cooking quite a bummer. I mean, it also can like suck the flavor out of food if we're like, oh, it's gotta be low fat. Oh, you have to go no salt and you have to do this. It's like, that's why I don't like when people post things. I mean, I don't like a lot of things on TikTok and social media. Who does? Except for trolls. But I just think if I put out there like, this is a low salt recipe, I think that tells somebody like, oh, well, that's healthier. But it's like, it may not be. It doesn't mean anything except, okay, it's lower salt in what way? And if that's appropriate for somebody and they can do these, like you can work with people one-on-one when they have different health conditions that require maybe a little more finesse or learning in the kitchen. But to just put out there like healthy turkey tetrazzini, it's like, why is that healthy? Like, so it also just makes cooking very, I don't know, isolated and convoluted and just overwhelming to people.
Yes.
It's
Maybe
flavorless.
maybe good for SEO to throw that healthy in there, but
Yes.
that's about it.
Yeah. And that's what's so unfortunate about our, like the
Yes.
food blog industry is like a lot of people do things just for that search engine optimization. And I've had my way of like trying to do certain things for SEO, but I just won't compromise on certain things. So if it's like, oh, if that's not going to go out because of this, then whatever. My best recipe is a Harry Potter butterbeer foam like replica. Like that gets me like all the
Amazing.
every day. I don't know why. It's going.
Yeah.
I wanted to add, speaking of like the tracking and how that can like just make this whole cooking experience just not fun. I hear clients tell me all the time that they will avoid making a home cooked meal because it's so much harder to track on the Fitness Pal.
Yeah.
That stinks. So they choose like a lean cuisine, which can be fine, of course. I'm not anti-lean cuisine. It can be a great easy dinner, but they will choose that and similar things time and time again and get away from the kitchen because it's just so much easier to scan the barcode on that.
Yes. No, exactly. I think, no, that's such a great point that like the planning that has to go into like your calorie counting and your tracking, depending on how specific if it's calories, if it's macros, if it's points, if it's, I don't know them all anymore.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's it. Like it just, if it makes you not cook, it can take away a whole skill from you. And like you said, there's nothing wrong with frozen meals. I support that all the time. But if you're not actually satisfied by that meal, and a lot of times my clients would say like, oh, I was so hungry after I ate that frozen meal. Why? And we can talk about that. But like, so, okay, this might be a side note too, but like sometimes then if that's where somebody's at, we might just talk about that gentle nutrition piece if that's where they're ready for, to say like, okay, if you want to do that lean cuisine or frozen meal, like what kind of ways could we cook a little and add to it? Just to get them even transitioned away from choices that are only being chosen because they fit and they're more easy to track on a app or a calculator.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's good advice. Like, how can we make this so it does just satisfy you a little bit more?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's a good question for clients to be honest with themselves about, like, was that meal and that amount and everything like satisfying? Were you full? And that's how you go through the principles and you talk about all those things. But really with cooking, it just, I don't know, it needs ingredients. It needs love and satisfaction and all these things. And if we're missing that because dieting's taking those away, like I think the kitchen just becomes like a really daunting and horrible place for some people.
Absolutely. Okay, well, let's go into like our next topic. It's a little bit of a shift, but kind of. I guess this whole thing is pretty cohesive, but I guess question is, what are some popular cooking beliefs that are actually like rooted in diet culture? So like we mentioned a little bit already, but like having to eat clean, or that you have to shop the perimeter of the grocery store to get the healthiest ingredients. Like what other things like that are things that you hear quite often that may be rooted in diet culture?
I think a big one is anti-carb. I think that is like one of the biggest ones. I think all three of us and hopefully every dietitian we know and meet is probably going to fight the anti-carb thing for like ever and ever and ever. So that's a big one where it's like, oh, you shouldn't have rice. You should have cauliflower rice. If you like cauliflower rice, great. If you don't, also great. It's the shoulds. It's a lot of those shoulds are coming from diet culture of like, I should do zucchini noodles instead of pasta because that's better. It's when I think you can kind of catch and challenge some of those beliefs if they're coming from a lot of shoulds and like, well, I remember when I followed that plan, I did this, so I should be doing that. Who is telling you that plan? Like, did it really work? Like, and what does it mean to work for you? And was it satisfying? And so, also the one of like eating clean, or one like One thing I'm kind of sick of that's getting pushed out there in cooking is like when an influencer or someone will say like, oh, well, if you cook this, there's no point to eating it because you've lost all the nutrients. And I'm just like,
Yes.
give me a break. I don't care if I lost a little vitamin A because I cooked my spinach. Like I just, that, I don't know why that like irks me so much. My husband actually just brought that up the other day. He's like, I learned this. I'm like, oh, why is this what we're talking about like in the break room?
Or they'll be like, there's no nutritional value to it anymore.
Yeah.
I heard
Yes.
that
Yes.
recently and I got it was like,
Empty calories.
yeah. And I
As-
was like, what do you mean there's no nutritional value? I'm like, you're definitely getting something out of it.
right.
Like, there's no way. There's none.
nothing.
Like, maybe air. That's like the
Air?
only thing I can think of that has
Right.
no nutritional value.
Did you serve air for dinner? Like
Yeah.
I don't know why that bugs me so much, but I think it's because it like anything that any diet or any influencer or anything out there that is telling people like that a food or a cooking experience isn't worth it is so just backwards. Like it's just bonkers to me. It's like I don't care if you do iceberg lettuce. If that makes you enjoy your sandwich more, fantastic. Get that fiber, get that hydration. I people always hate on iceberg lettuce, and I'm like,
Yes.
I
love
love
iceberg
iceberg
lettuce.
lettuce.
Like,
The poor
thank
thing.
you. I know it's like that, and like poor carrots, poor bananas. Like, the fruit has too much sugar. That's that's a big thing rooted, of course, in diet culture that again can ruin a lot of cooking experiences. I just made this great like a dish that has like chicken and bell peppers and onions, and you cook it in orange juice and water and thyme and lime juice, and it like simmers for a long time until it's like this thick so it's like
Ooh.
that's like completely off the table if orange juice or fruit is bad. So it's like it just eliminates so many options. I don't know if that answered the question. I think I went off topic.
It did. It did.
You
That's so
did.
great. So I guess the part 2 to this though is if people are hearing or they have these thoughts, they're like, okay, I heard that I should only eat cauliflower rice instead of rice. If they're having thoughts like this, how should they start to challenge these beliefs?
Yeah, I think there honestly are just some key words to start like listening to. And I teach this to some people just to start listening to the way you talk about food. If you are shoulding on yourself a lot, if you are, I have to do this, I need to, which are all the same as I should. Or if it's, I heard this, therefore I need to only do this. When you have like that really normal self-talk, I want to make sure people know that that's 100% normal. Or when you have that really limiting thought about food, it's like, it's only got to be this way, or it's kind of a all or nothing mentality with the food. I think even just starting to be aware of like those really normal thought patterns, but how they may be like limiting you in the kitchen or in like impacting your ability to cook in a way that brings you joy and meal plan and use up your groceries like without beating yourself up every week. I think listening to your language is just really helpful. And honestly, I could find a direct link for you guys if you want, but like you can look up like I think there's 10 most like unhelpful but normal thinking styles. I used to teach this a lot in a program where like we would say like these are really, really, really normal. These are really often like limiting and impacting different things in your behaviors in your life. So in what ways then can we challenge that? So a lot of times too, I'll tell people to start asking what questions instead of why. Like some people say like, well, why can't I have rice instead of cauliflower rice? And like why sometimes can be helpful. Oftentimes like a what is more helpful. What can I do to make cooking more enjoyable? What can I do to get this belief system changed? Or who can I reach out to? Preferably a dietitian, someone licensed in nutrition, please.
The ideal.
But like what are my options? I think asking like what questions, who questions, and pausing and asking if those are like limiting thoughts at all. and like number one, I say all the time is like show yourself unconditional compassion, because even if you're just trying to step away from diet culture, or maybe you've never dieted but you're still not wanting to get into that road, or you've had an eating disorder, whatever it is, I just think it's so important to show yourself compassion, that like thoughts pop up without our permission. They, we have a thought, I can tell you both, like, don't think about the white dog, and you're gonna think about a white dog. Like you can't stop that thought. But you can plant a seed, and you can work on your second thoughts, and you can work on showing yourself compassion. So I think that's my number one, is be compassionate toward yourself.
That's amazing advice. I remember like
Yeah.
even in school to become a dietitian, we were taught to not really ask our clients why. So not
Right.
only should you not ask yourself that, probably depending on the question, but we were taught to not really ask questions in that way, and ask more of what, how, who, when, where, because it is just less judgmental than like, oh, why did you eat that for breakfast? It's like, what led to you choosing that for breakfast? Often
Yeah.
it's going to be more compassionate seeming and just a better way. So whether it's an RD listening, it's a great advice for that. But even talking to yourself, I think that's amazing to try to limit those whys.
Yeah, I find whys are usually the culprit of like ruminating and like circular thoughts that like never really seem to end, and they're rabbit holes that can be really dark for some people. So it is important to I think just having a couple key things to think about one at a time, maybe even, is important too. If you're listening and you're like, all right, I'm overhauling my kitchen, like, no, don't do that. Leave all your food in there, take it a day at a time, like one goal at a time. Because that's just important too. Take it slow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our last little question for you is, what are your best tips, top tips for our listeners, if to kind of cook without food rules or restrictions? I don't know if that really makes sense. Like, what's the best way to get there? And
Yeah, I
what
think
can they
like
implement?
I think a couple, well, there's a lot of different approaches, but to like have a couple of takeaways. If you are somebody who has dieted and you don't want to do that anymore, but you're confused or lost or daunted by like, what do I do with all this food in my kitchen? I find taking an inventory is a great step, whether you're working on budgeting, non-dieting, you're working on cooking skills, anything. Like, take an inventory and like write down. It's a little time consuming, but write down everything you have in your freezer, everything in your pantry, everything in your cupboards. Toss out the things that I encourage some people, it's appropriate to toss out things that are pulling you back to diet culture. I don't like to waste food, so I like to tell people like there's probably ways we can use certain things, but if not, maybe you can donate it if appropriate, give it to a friend if appropriate, or toss it if appropriate too. So you can kind of purge your kitchen a little bit, but by no means you need to toss out all your food, because a lot of diets will tell you to do that. And you see that on shows too, right? They're like, we're gonna revamp your kitchen, we're tossing everything out. I'm like, what a waste. Like, what a wasted opportunity. So an inventory, I like to do that sometimes, depending on where someone's at in their journey, so that we can just start talking about food. I mean, like, okay, you've got chicken in your freezer, you've got lentils in your pantry, you've got this, you've got that. And I just like to start thinking of ideas, or have them research ideas of ways that they could use the food that they have on hand. So that way it doesn't slip into that diet mentality of like, you need to buy 50 better ingredients in order to cook healthy. Because that's the other thing diets do. Like, you must have avocado oil and olive oil. And I do like those things, but they're not accessible to everybody. Like, so that's a really important piece to remember for other people. If you're, everybody's judgy in some kind of way and can work on their own biases, but there's a lot of bias toward like grocery shopping and what people keep in their kitchen. Tangent. But so the inventory, taking out or looking at diet foods you might be keeping. So once you've got the inventory and you're starting to think of like, here's how I could start using some of the food I have, and I usually recommend writing that down or putting it in a Google Doc. Then if you are somebody who's like, okay, I want to explore more, how do I really get diet culture out of my kitchen? It might be if you keep a food scale, and if it's not serving you in a way of baking with exact measures, which is the only time I pull it out if I'm using like Mary Berry from the Great British Bake Off. Like all of her recipes in the book I have are in grams, so it can serve my purpose and it's not harming me. So, and for some people it is. So like getting rid of some tools that might have like been a part of your dieting past, maybe scanning through any magazines or books you have in your kitchen lingering around that are saying like low cal recipe, swaps for this. Like everybody's ready for those things to be back in their life and back, because they're going to be there, right? The media is going to push that new cookbook and they're going to push that at the bookstore. So I think if you're equipped with tools, by the time you see all that stuff, you might be able to pull a recipe from a book like that and really love it and be completely satisfied and just move on. I don't find a lot of people start there. So either get rid of those books and magazines and recipes or tuck them away for now. So those are just a couple things to start with, and I think it just goes back to asking yourself, like, what foods really satisfy you, and like what foods are you really missing in your kitchen. I love seeing that because, and I mean, I'll be honest, a lot of times it's carbs. A lot of times, like, I really miss rice, or I really miss pasta, or I really miss this one meal that my mom taught me how to make and I haven't been able to make it because it's too many calories. And it's like, those are like conquerable recipes and cooking tasks that, like, depending on where someone's at, we put that on a higher level goal. Maybe someone's not ready yet. But I think sometimes even just like asking yourself what taste, what textures, what smells, what experiences do you want in your kitchen? What are you excited to work for, so that you feel that like excitement and momentum, but you also take it like that day at a time and you use more of what you have on hand. That's something I really try to help people with, is like, a lot of people have food in their house that either they're just not using because they're not planning, or they don't have the tools or the education to do that yet, or they're afraid of their food and it goes bad and then they feel guilty because they're wasting food because, oh, I was dieting again. So it's like, I just want to get guilt like out of the kitchen for people. That's like, it's not a guilt-free kitchen. I'm not using that diety lingo either, but I want guilt to be out of people's cooking experiences. And so out of all those, I know those are a couple different tips, but I think any of them are places for people at least just to start either challenging old beliefs or unlearning a little bit or relearning, or just exploring. Just explore what those things could offer you. Be open to it.
Yes. Something we always say is like, be curious, about these different things. I was thinking when you're talking about all of that, in my like membership, I do this like social media detox. And I always preface that we don't love the word detox when it comes to nutrition. But I was thinking of like what you're talking about, like a kitchen detox, but not detoxing like different foods that are quote unquote unhealthy for you. It's ditching all those different dieter tools and detoxing of those different things. So that's where my brain was at while you're talking about all that kind of stuff.
and you know, it's like, there are parts of me that want to recapture some of those catchy, buzzy words like detox or whatever. And so sometimes I think that has a great purpose. Like, you know, like, I am the professional and I can use this word and actually educate you and remind you that you have a liver and kidneys, hopefully, and that you do the detoxing for you, working bowel system in any way, you know, it's like, yeah, but I think it's kind of fun to reclaim those things. So everybody has their own journey. And I always think that's one thing in like the intuitive eating space that can get lost, I see in different accounts. Like, it's really, and it's hard. Like, you have to be aware of like where everybody's at in their journey, and you simply can't be. So every single post that any of us make is not going to be like 100% perfect, accurate, like applicable to every soul on the planet, and we know that. So that's why, like, I hate when I see the language of like that makes it all these ultimatums and all this all or nothing thought. So it's like, I don't know, that's another good thing to be aware of. If you're a kitchen detoxing, you can be aware of those all or nothing thoughts or influencers or people who are like making you fearful of perfectly safe ingredients. Like canola oil is like a big
Oh
one.
my
Like,
gosh.
don't have canola oil. I'm like, yeah. And like I said, access is really important to me. I used to teach cooking classes only in lower income spaces in this community I live in. And it was wonderful because I felt like I could actually tell people like, you have the tools. Oh, but this is my budget. That's okay. Like we can work with that. Like, and canola oil always comes to mind because you know, they get told like they shouldn't use it. And I'm like, you just took away so much for somebody in a kitchen. Like it's incredible what words can do to people.
Yes. The canola oil. It's
I know. Poor canola oil.
so
Another victim.
unnecessary. We're gonna like record a full episode on that actually pretty soon. I'm very excited about that.
Good. Yeah. Oil is kind of a hot topic, at least in SEO.
It is.
Oh yeah. Ugh,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a lot of fun. Try to I don't know, challenge those things like you said. So if you're listening and you want a kitchen detox and that word like just makes you excited to just give the big F you to diet culture, then do it.
Yeah. It's all about like the reason behind the words.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
If it works
Yeah.
for you, go for it.
Yeah. Cool. So I feel like you gave them so many amazing tips and you provide us with so much great knowledge and insight. We always like to end or pre-end, it's not at the end, of the serious part, the end, kind of leaving our listeners with a couple sentences of your last final thoughts about the entire podcast. I know we talked about a lot.
Yeah.
If you could summarize either like the points you want them to hear the most in a couple sentences, what would it be?
My philosophy, and this is my business model, this is what I operate on, is that cooking and nutrition is meant to be livable, doable, and fun. If we are missing one of those pillars or one is crumbled down because of diet culture or because of all kinds of different factors, then that's what we work on building back up. And I want to say that nobody is hopeless in the kitchen. Nobody. Even if you boil like rice, which actually happens quite a bit. Like nobody's hopeless in the kitchen. You can take your skills from A to C or C to then Z, wherever you want to go. And also if you hate cooking, that's also workable in the kitchen. You don't have to cook. I'm actually doing while we're recording this in the month of June, I'm doing like no cook meals because some people really don't like cooking, especially in the heat of summer. So you don't have to cook. Like you can put all these different foods on your plate that require no cooking and you can redefine what your meals look like. But you know, a lot of times food rules tell us like, well, eggs are for breakfast and this is for that. So banish the rules in your kitchen. And if you need help, that's what we're here for.
I love that. It like all comes down to just not having those rules. You can eat whatever, whenever, technically.
Yep. And it's like the scariest thing, I think, for people to like hear that and like work it into their life. But once those gears are clicking, it's fantastic. So if food rules are ruling your kitchen, then reach out because like we can change that.
Yeah.
In so many ways.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Okay, amazing. Let's get into the bonus question. I am like very excited. I feel like Jessi, you'll have a much better answer for this than Emily and I will. Maybe, I don't know, Emily, maybe you will, but
No,
my answer is terrible.
I don't think mine's gonna be great.
Jessi, why don't you do us the honor of going first and answering? So the question is white chocolate actually chocolate?
Oh, I mean, it's a blend of a lot of very similar ingredients. So it's like it's not actually chocolate in the way that we're talking about chocolate, but a lot of times what people think chocolate is not actually chocolate either. And we're being like super technical in the kitchen. So no is my answer. White chocolate is not chocolate. But it is a very similar blend of ingredients if you're comparing it to like the chocolate that we see on the candy shelf or the chocolate chips in the baking aisle or like the chocolate syrup added to chocolate milk. yes, it's similar to that, but it's not actually chocolate. What are your thoughts on that?
That's always been my understanding, is like it is just, it's the same but not the same. Like
Mhm.
technically no, but we can call it that because it is so similar. It depends like who you're talking to. Like if you're talking to like Gordon Ramsay, no, you're not going to call it
Right.
chocolate. But like
You'd not say that.
no. Also, I'd be scared to talk to him in general, but I
Yeah.
definitely would never say that to him. I feel like
Yeah.
that would just be cause for concern. But yeah, I think it depends how technical you want to get. I've also always heard like, no, it's not, just depending on like the ingredients that are in it.
Yeah, it's like I mean, you can make what the white chocolate, milk chocolate, dark chocolate, and all of those may not actually be what chocolate is.
Right.
So I don't know. That is so fascinating to me. I think now I kind of want to dig into the history of like what happened to chocolate. What did we
happened
do?
to chocolate?
Just like the other victim. I'm gonna do an episode on like
Another victim.
foods in the kitchens that are victims of diet culture. Like
Ooh,
That would be wild.
right? Even
that's actually a really good
cauliflower.
idea.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you all for that.
Put cauliflower in there too. That one's like,
Oh,
Did anyone
that poor
ask it? It didn't want all of this.
no. Poor cauliflower.
I
Yeah.
know. Poor like so many fruits and vegetables.
I know.
Or like somebody told me they were like, oh, I'm starting this plan, and I'm like, cool, like happy for you. That sounds great, because they're not a client. It's not someone asking my actual opinion. So I don't
Right.
know. That's
Yep.
how I handle certain ones. And they were like, well, I can't have like beans and lentils. Like, what do you think about that? And I'm like, I think that's bullshit. I don't know why they're all like, I don't know.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Seems like an odd food to demonize, especially like one
Yeah.
that's so like high in fiber and like filling and tasty and
Yeah.
a
and when
staple
you
in so
look
many
at, like,
cultures.
yeah, I was just gonna
yes.
say that.
Oh
when
my
you look
gosh.
at, like,
Yes.
cultural food, like dieting is also, I mean, that's a whole different episode you could do.
Yes. Oh yeah.
the-
We have one planned. Do
It's on the
not-
list.
yeah, it's fantastic, because like, yeah, dieting can totally ruin and take away people's entire culture, which is terrible. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Anywho, white chocolate's not chocolate.
Yeah. Emily, do you have any other thoughts on this?
My only thought was chocolate is a construct. And I was thinking of the
Whoa, that's
so I
bold.
was gonna say yes, only because of the white milk dark chocolate argument. But I don't even know I could not tell you I don't think I could tell you what chocolate is.
What is chocolate? I don't
Yeah.
even know.
I think it is like, and then also like red velvet.
Yeah.
Okay.
That whole thing.
Okay.
'Cause,
That's
like,
actually
what
going to be
is
a good
red
bonus
velvet?
question.
Because I was like, chocolate is a social construct.
I love that.
So I was gonna say it's a very, I don't know, because I was thinking like, what would you describe it as? Is it vanilla? Like,
It's red dye, isn't red velvet like just red
oh,
dye?
I was talking about white chocolate, but also, yeah,
Oh, white
isn't that
chocolate.
what no, but to your point, yeah, red velvet, isn't it just the dye?
Red dyed chocolate, right?
That's it. But like, it's a whole controversy.
Yeah. There's like a whole baking world in the cooking world that like is very fascinating to me.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like what you said, Jessi, about like chocolate syrup. And then you also have like the chocolate, like ice cream versus like a truffle, like chocolate truffle. Those are all completely different forms of chocolate
Yeah.
that are all still chocolate.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hmm.
That could be
Mhm.
another episode. You guys are like, you're filling my schedule. This is great. And we've got
Good.
chocolate history and like foods that have been personally victimized by culture.
Episode name right there. That's perfect.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. Well, Jessi, thank you again so much for coming on today. It's going to be an amazing episode for our listeners. We love being able to discuss like actual, like tangible stuff like cooking that everyone, for the most part, has to do as adults.
Yeah.
They don't warn you when you like becoming a grown up, you have to like cook forever and ever and ever. So it's good to
Feed
be able to
yourself.
do that. Yeah. It's good to be able to do that in like a not diety way. So thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom on that. It's going to be so helpful.
I'm excited to share it for sure. So thanks for having me.
Cool. So where can our listeners find you if they want to work with you, they want to hear more of your thoughts, if they want to listen to those podcasts or read those blog episodes that you're going to come out with,
Yeah.
kind of like social media, websites. If you have
Mhm.
any programs coming out, they could work on anything like that.
Yeah, yep. So they can always find me at the kitchen invitation.com. You'll see like the different programs I have, the services, and just all different approaches depending on where you're at and how much you want to dive in. So I have a completely online based program. I offer lots of different one-on-one or group packages. I even do like I've done a couple like bachelorette and bachelor parties of cooking virtual.
my-
So like there's a world of opportunity out there for cooking. So even if it's not listed on my site, I'm probably pretty open to it. But yeah, anything you can find me on social media as far as that as the kitchen invitation, or my name's Jessi Holden. So search for it and you should find me.
That is so cool. That bachelor party
what?
thing. Like, that's
It was a
awesome.
lot of fun.
Whoa. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we will share all those links in the description so you guys can find them. Jessi, thank you again so much. And thank you guys so much for listening today. Hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to check out all of Jessi's things, and we will see you guys next week.
All right, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in on this episode of the Up-Beet Dietitians with your hosts Emily Krause and Hannah Thompson.
We appreciate you all so much for continuing to support us. In order to support us and sustain the success of this podcast, please subscribe and leave a rating and review.
If you'd like to provide us feedback for future episodes and guest stars, follow us on Instagram at the Up-Beet Dietitians.
Lastly, you can show us support by providing a monthly donation using the link at the end of our bio.
Once again, thank you so much for listening today, and stay tuned next Wednesday for a new episode. Until then, we hope you have a wonderful rest of your week.